Another thing that helped make my jiu-jitsu game better, and this will be the second tip that I'll give you guys, second idea that was really useful to me, was learning to enjoy playing off my back. So basically, as many of you probably know, being a wrestler, when you get into jiu-jitsu, it's a little bit of a tough thing. Initially, when I got into jiu-jitsu, I wanted nothing to do with playing the guard, playing off my back. My thought to myself was that I would simply put my feet on someone's hips, kick them away, and get up to my feet and wrestle. Now, I was not the best wrestler, so I didn't really think this through very well. Mind you, I'm 18 years old. And again, it didn't work. And when I would compete or when I would roll, if I got put on my back, I was done. I was cooked. And it wasn't until I went to a seminar where the person, a guy named Pablo Popovich, was showing some really cool guard stuff like butterfly guard and daily Hiva guard, stuff that was really, in 2003 was kind of cool for the times. It was at that point that I was like, whoa, this is really neat. There's a lot of stuff that you can do with it. It doesn't have to be this really static, boring position, right?
Yeah.
And so it was after that I started being really interested in playing the guard. And also, too, my coach put me on my back for 3 months and made me start every match, on my back. And I hated it until I didn't. And then I started playing off my back and I started having fun with it and enjoying it. And then at that point, that gave me a couple different things. One is that when I would start rolling with the guard players, I knew what they were doing. And so this landscape that was essentially completely foreign to me was now very well mapped. I knew exactly when they grabbed my arm, I knew they were going for an arm bar, so I had to defend it. If they were going for a sweep, I knew they were going for a sweep. And then also, too, it allowed my guard passing and my game in general just to get better, because if I got put on my back, I wasn't afraid. And again, fear creates tension in your body. Fear creates rigidity. And when you're in a sport where you're having to be mobile and fast and agile, you can't be rigid. And even if you're physically loose and good, if mentally you're rigid and you can't take the chances to go for the opportunities as they show themselves, then you're not going to be very, very successful. Or you may be successful to a degree, but you'll always be less than what you know is in you. And that was a case with me for a long time. The more that I learned to be comfortable everywhere, not just off my back, and you could take this lesson elsewhere, but the more I became comfortable with all of my weak areas by, building them up a little bit, the more loose and free that I was, because I wasn't fearful of any position. I could play everywhere. And so that's a really important thing. If there is a place in jiu-jitsu, a place in your game that you feel fearful, that's where you need to go, because you need to get rid of that fear, because it'll allow you to play better everywhere else. And it reminds me of Ralph Waldo Emerson had a quote from one of his essays saying something to the effect of, you do the thing and you get the power, right? So basically, whatever freaks you out, you do that thing. And then by doing that thing, you gain power from it, right? And a lot of times, move towards your fear, as long as it's not something that's life-threatening, is generally a good idea.
So I will come at this idea from the opposite angle, as someone that did not wrestle, did not have that, ended up on his back a lot more, that I started jiu-jitsu basically in the guard. That was where I was comfortable holding somebody in the guard. So for me, it was like learning some stand-up, learning some wrestling, learning some takedowns that I could, that I could effectively, not avoiding the stand-up aspect of jiu-jitsu, because that's so every match starts on the feet. So starting from the feet, not avoiding that, learning some takedowns, learning some, okay, if I want to get somebody into my guard, some effective guard pulls or some little throws, things like that. But that's something I think it's valuable for if you're someone that comes into jiu-jitsu without a wrestling background, work on your wrestling. I mean, because you're going to know how to counter wrestle, how to defend takedowns. You're going to know how to do some of those things that are valuable. So that way, if you do get taken down, you have a good idea on how to retain guard or get in a good position. So you're not just getting your guard pass right off the bat. So for me, doing some stand-up, some wrestling is something that I needed to do more, end up on top more, because I was more comfortable on the bottom playing, closed guard, open guard type stuff on my back. So I really think use that idea. If you're someone that's purely a jiu-jitsu person with no wrestling background, do the inverse of it and learn some takedowns and work your wrestling. I think it's a good idea to do that.
All right. And I mean, it's a good idea, again, going to those places where you're weak, where you have some fear, where you're nervous about, it's a good idea.